Very exciting, guys. We move on to our first lot of cheapies. We've got the hooker and also the half section here to go through. We will learn a lot more across the preseason about these guys, but it's really good to start to learn and look at the guys that you're going to be popping on your bench to really get a lot of those guns and the mid-rangers in your team. So to kick it off with, we do have Mitch Rain, and he comes in at 372, a nice average of 6 last year, and they've priced him up a little bit because of the types of scores that he can get when he starts. So what we're looking at with Mitch is the potential to start at some point in the year. He does need an injury because they have Josh Hodgson there. He's coming off a big injury, Joshy, so there's every chance that Rain plays at some point in the year. And it's going to be really important for you to learn about Mitchy Rain. And his pros are, anytime he gets over that 60 minutes, he's averaging 45 plus. So there's a year there where he averages 45 and a half. So that's the lowest when he gets minutes over 50. And most of the time when he does get minutes over 50, it is in close to full games, anywhere in that 65 to 68 kind of range in terms of min. So yeah, just be aware of him, guys, that he will come up at some point as an option, especially if there's a season-long injury at some point to Hodgson, but probably not in round one. Well, let's hope not for Joshy's sake. Zach Wolford is our next guy. He's from the Raiders at 362, averaged 25.3 last year, which wasn't great. What we saw last year is that when he's playing anywhere between 30 and 60 minutes, he's averaging around 25. So really doesn't change too much in terms of those minutes. And he has Starling there, who, with the Raiders at any point could get a start. Wolford could get dropped. Wolford could become the big minute guy. We have no idea what Sticky's going to do. For those that watch a fair bit of footy, we see that Ricky chops and changes his team fairly often, especially his edge guys. CHN, he's very difficult for him to get a clear role in that team. So yeah, very, very interesting there for Wolford as to how that's going to play out this year, as well as Starling, because Starling will be a solid option if he does get some type of role there. The pros for Wolford, does he have some type of natural improvement given it was his first year? We'd definitely need to see it first, though. At 362, really not worth popping in your side straight away. Corey Pake's in there, 299. Obviously super cheap, but there's a reason for that at the moment. Average 20.9 last year. Pros for him, when he plays 30, 60 minutes, he averages 26. Obviously, that's about 5 points of value. So if he does get that starting role, there is at least 5 points of value in there. Again, you're probably looking for him to get around that 60 minutes, so he'd be able to average a little bit more. But again, PPM doesn't change too much. It's not very good, even if he plays that bigger minutes. So he can come on and have a good spurt at 35, 40 minutes and score about the same as in the bigger minutes. So as I said, that PPM is not great. And I think there's too many variables at this stage when you've got Billy Walters, who's someone that could be an option that we spoke about in that previous video. Sonny Luke, so from the Panthers there, average 12.5, only got some low minute games off the bench at 250k, comes at almost bottom dollar there. Pros for him, obviously young with plenty of talent in a great team. So that's really cool. Most likely going to be an increased role this year. He was behind, obviously, Api Coruscant, and Mitch Kenny was getting a lot of those bench minutes, played a bit of hooker, and obviously through the middle as well. So Sonny Luke will get an increased role this year. I see him as being a solid option. He's only 4 games into his career at this point. The cons for him, in those limited minutes, he had a 0.45 ppm. So he was sitting at about 27 minutes there a game for the games that he did play and didn't get into too much work. So as I said, you'd expect some natural improvement from him, but we'd probably like to see it in trials and him getting a good role of 30, 40 minutes. If he does that, I think that's going to be worth it for him to average at least 20, 25 at a minimum. If he could get somewhere between 35 and 40 minutes, which is every chance of, very, very different player to Mitch Kenny. So I think that could be an option at some point this year. Mamazelis, so he's been with the Bunnies for a while now. He comes in at 250k, an average of 21. Again, someone that when he gets some decent minutes in here, you see over 30 minutes, he averages 41 in those games. So pretty cool. There's some 40s in there. There's some bigger minutes in there. But the big one is he's behind Cook. So Cook's been super consistent the last few years in terms of injuries and suspensions. Mamazelis only really gets to play in the origin period. So for him, definitely someone to keep in your black book, guys. If Cook goes down, he's going to come in and most people will pick him up. So probably not one to start with because he won't really get a role. Sonny Luke, a little bit different as it looks like he'll at least be on the bench with Kenny starting. All right, we've got 2 young fellas, Jaden Beryl and Moser. So sorry, I got Beryl with the Sharks there, not the Warriors, which I'll change, and Moser with the Broncos at 230k, so they are at bottom dollar. Both guys very young guns in reserve grade. They've done really well and are good scorers when they play in reserve grade. So if they get an opportunity at some point, again through injury, if they'd like to move Moser up instead of playing Pakes, and they want to play or Walters, and Moser comes in and plays some decent minutes off the bench, or he gets that starting role, then he could be pretty interesting to plug and play in your team, because they are second and third in line for Moser at the moment. So definitely need an opportunity, but someone to keep an eye on as you head into the season. So the half cheapies, we move on now, and we've got Jaden Sullivan, who unfortunately has gone down with a hamstring injury since writing this, but 6 weeks out for him. It looks like he's a good chance of being back in round 2, because they've got the bye in round 1 there. And is that going to be enough for him to come back and be firing? I doubt it, because hamstring injuries are pretty tough, especially if you've got a 6-week one, which is obviously a grade 2, rather than a grade 1 being like a 2 to 3 week type of injury. There's no point in them rushing him back. They've got Moses Umbaya to come in and play some type of role. But yeah, so Jaden Sullivan there, solid potential option at some point. A lot of us were thinking about him to start the year, but he is going to be Ben Hunt's side piece there, and he won't be getting a lot of the kicking. He's obviously not basement price, and he's obviously not guaranteed the 6th position either with the injury that he's ended up with. So most for him, he's actually really good at running the footy. He scored really well in hooker. 6, he's going to be able to run and tackle, which he's pretty solid at, and I think he'll make some money at some point. But can we start with him with them having a bye in round 1? I don't think so. Lukey Metcalf there at 319 moves to the Warriors. He's obviously moved there with talk of him potentially getting a spot if he impresses, which he wasn't able to do at the Sharks. And then when he signed with the Warriors, there's really no point of the Sharks developing him, because he was only going to be there for that season. And they've got plenty of talent at the moment at 1, 6, 7, and obviously 9 as well. So really makes an impact when he gets injected into games. You've seen the points that he could score. Nice PPM when he does get a chance. He's lightning quick. So yeah, I think when you're moving to the Warriors, he's a chance at the 1 or the 6. You've got Nickel Klukstar is probably going to get that 1 spot. It looks like Tamade Martin is lining up to take that 6 role, and we have him or Volkman that are going for that as well. So yeah, not much talk on Metcalf. He could be a 14, which could be interesting. Even at 14, it's a bit of a strange one at that 319k price point. But as I said, he's fairly cheap there. He's priced at about a 20 mark at 319, which is obviously ideal. Anything around that 28-30 is going to be hectic, but yeah, will he be able to get that at this point? I'm not sure, but super fast and can get plenty of opportunities when he does play. And the only worry really is if he does get a spot to start with, or even throughout the season, that he could potentially be dropped if the team is struggling a bit. So yeah, plenty to think about with Metcalf, but most likely not going to be playing straight up at this point. All right, we've got Dean Hawkins and also Mapapalangi there for the South and the Warriors, respectively. They're both at the 319k, both unlikely to get a spot, but their average is really nice, 36 and 40 respectively. So cons for them, obviously they need some injuries to get a spot, but if that happens as well, they could definitely get a chance at doing pretty well in that one there. So they're the two. We'll speak about them more if injuries come up, but at the moment, they're just a general thought there. And guys, all of these will be in our Cheapie Bible, which is a really exciting thing that we do each and every year. And I'm going to have that whole Word document for you guys. I'm eventually going to be going through the whole document as we learn a little bit more about teams and get closer to trials and sort of predicted team lists and stuff like that. Volkman and Tamade Martin, both at 319 as well. Average of 35 for Volkman and 22 for Tamade. So Volkman there, the 35 average, no attacking stats in those 2 games that he played, which is nice. And Martin played well at 5'8" for the Cows a bunch of years ago. It's his second year back from having a bit of a spell, thinking that he wasn't probably going to play again. So you'd imagine some slight improvement just on that, being it's his second year coming back. But he didn't score very well, averaged 22 in 80-minute efforts for the Broncos last year. So not great at all. And both cons, obviously not guaranteed the spot straight away or long-term for both of them. And Martin has the 2 scores over 40 last year, which is not very good in more than half a season. So not ideal for both of them. Volkman, does he get the spot? If he does, I think he becomes some type of option, given he's a young gun. Tamade, I'm kind of staying away. I understand why people are going towards him, but just be aware that he has plenty of low scores, and he's moving to a lesser team, unfortunately, from the Broncos over to the Warriors there. Last 2 guys, we got Cody Nikorima there at 250. He has had, obviously, plenty of games where he has scored well in the past, in big minute roles, in 50-minute roles, but he's obviously always been super talented, can run the footy well, but I think he's going to need 40 plus minutes, and I'm not sure if he could get that, but there's definitely a chance he could get that at the Dolphins there. Being a bottom dollar price, there's not a big issue with picking him up, but we'd want to get a bit of an idea in trials as to how many minutes he's going to play. Cons for him, obviously, a 0.52 ppm last year off the bench when he got over 30 minutes. So we're looking at close to it, that 15 to 20 average, which he got. So really, you'd be needing about that 50 mark to get 4 to 5 points of value if he keeps that ppm. That is one of the lowest of his career, though. So yeah, really interesting one, but can you pick him? Probably not. And Jakey Arthur, so 250k for him. Averages 16.9 for last year. Really, he only scores well at half. He's played at 6, and Dylan Brown has played that halfback position. So anytime that Arthur gets the lower kick meters, he doesn't score very well. And he's going to need Moses and Brown out, which I think is really unlikely because, as I said, when Moses was out last year, Arthur came in. Brown took that 7 role and did majority of the kicking and a lot of the positional work, whereas it would be the exact same with Moses. So I don't see him being a great option at all this year. And I'd see Mitch Rain coming off the bench to cover Hodgson, so I couldn't see him covering any hooker minutes. So, yeah, in terms of half cheapies right now, not really much has come up. Sullivan is probably the biggest option there, and you've got a couple of guys that are waiting on injuries. And then with our hookers, main one I'm probably would be most interested in if Rain got a chance with injury. And I actually think Sonny Luke is probably going to have a crack at some point in the year. And obviously Beryl and Moser. I think Moser's got the biggest chance of coming in and upsetting the apple cart, the Walters and Corey Pakes, because they both haven't really cemented that spot. They don't really have a clear number 9 in their side. Jaden Beryl, if there's an injury as well, he's going to come in and do great. So as I said, guys, an important opportunity to have a look at both and all of these guys in these cheapie positions, get a little bit of an idea as to if you'd be looking to pick them up in your side. And just want to shout out the new private group that I've got there, guys. Just check the announcements tab in the Discord if you want to check into that a little bit more. I've got plenty of information in that private group, going to be coming out over the preseason, and then going to be huge week to week with lots of prizes, obviously some merch as well. So I hope you enjoyed all of this, guys. I hope you enjoyed the private group, and we'll catch you in the next one.